This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 828, recorded on Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. Swimming in a Sea of Science. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on the show, we are going to fill your heads with life, happiness, and schooling. But first, thanks to our amazing Patreon sponsors for their generous support of TWIS. You can become a part of the Patreon community at patreon.com/thisweekinscience.
Disclaimer. In advance of the coming Pentagon report on unidentified aerial phenomena, some are expecting evidence of extraterrestrials, while others are expecting scientific explanations. Likely both will be disappointed. In the meantime, consider the following. What if it turns out that humans are the most intelligent life form in the galaxy? Life in the galaxy seems likely. Life abounds on Earth. Life is chemistry. Chemistry of the Earth is not rare in the galaxy. But intelligent life, that sentient theory of mind, innovator of language, mathematics, technology, the type of intelligence humans are capable of, is so incredibly rare here on Earth that it only happened to one species. And even then we have to ask ourselves, for how long will that intelligent species last upon the Earth? If you can imagine that we might be it for higher intelligence, the one rare example, what then? What responsibility should we have, the most intelligent creature in the galaxy, for the planet we are on, for preserving the only life forms we know to exist, for using our intelligence to uncover the mysteries of the universe, for one day traveling beyond our own star, so we can discover other planets, other life, or maybe just use that big brain of ours to get along with one another here on Earth. If you're looking for the most intelligent life forms in the galaxy, you can find them. The place you should be looking is This Week in Science, coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind I can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science. What's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science.
Good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
And a good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We are back again. What are we talking about this week?
Science?
Yes. Yes. We're talking about science because we love to show up every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific time to talk about science together. We love to do that. And we're glad that those of you who are watching live are here with us right now. And those of you who are watching us or listening to us as a podcast or time shifted on your favorite platform, thank you for joining us whenever you can. We do hope that you enjoy the next Science-y hour or more. We'll see how long we'll see how long it goes. I have stories. I did bring some this week about treating depression, learning math, and reviving life.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that
fun
sounds
times.
exciting.
Yeah, they are exciting. Lots of exciting stories. Justin, what did you bring?
I have got expensive asteroids, robots raising children, flu vaccine study that you might have thought they'd done a long time ago, and why women should eat healthy foods.
Just
Everyone
women,
should eat
not
healthy food.
kids or
Yeah, okay.
men or generally
More,
people.
Yes, good advice, good advice. But it's even more so good advice for women, and I'll explain why
All
at the
right.
end of the show.
Fantastic. Blair, what is in the
Yes.
animal corner?
Oh, I have hanger. I have
There you go.
bacteria traps. I have school lessons gone wrong. And I have puppies.
Oh,
I like puppies.
Yeah.
We have a whole bunch of science news to talk about, so let's get to it. Before we do, just want to remind you right there, that you can subscribe to This Week in Science on just about any podcast platform that is out there. We are also on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. And you can find us by looking for This Week in Science. Our website is twis.org. All right. First story of the night. What about reviving ancient life? I mean, I think I remember some movies with this theme, and it always goes horribly awry.
That's because they don't show you the movies where everything just works out to be a
They don't,
new
right?
scientific discovery. They just
Yeah.
those scripts don't get off the ground.
Yeah, very banal.
Hollywood's not so into it. So, yeah. Anyway, Russian researchers took from the ancient Siberian permafrost.
Okay, this does sound like exactly like... Okay, wait a sec.
Here we go, right? Some samples. This is from the Soil Cryology Lab. They published in the journal Current Biology on their study in which they reawakened bedelloid rotifers. These are little water-living multicellular animals, not single-cell bacteria or yeast-like organisms. These are multicellular animals. You do need a microscope to be able to take a look at them. They're not really visible by the naked eye, but still, multiple cells working to keep them going. And they're tough little creatures, kind of on the level of tardigrades. They're not quite tardigrade level of being able to survive things, but they can freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw. Well, I said ancient. And this ancientness, 24,000 years they had been frozen.
Oh, my goodness.
Brought back to life.
Wow.
Totally fine. And they've also, previously, they identified a worm, a nematode that was about 30,000 years old. But this, as they say, Stas Malovin of the Soil Cryology Laboratory at the Institute of Physiochemical and Biological Problems in Soil Science in Pushino, Russia. Our report is the hardest proof as of today that multicellular animals could withstand tens of thousands of years in cryptobiosis, the state of almost completely arrested metabolism. I mean, talk about arrested development.
Yeah.
It's all these bones and skin. It's just it's keeping us from some of the coolest stuff, right?
Yeah, I know. But this is the interesting point, Blair. Justin talked about regenerating limbs last week with respect to axolotls and what we could learn from the molecular biology of organisms that are really good at regenerating things. And here we have an organism like the tardigrade able to withstand freezing for a very long period of time. Could the mechanisms that are involved in allowing a multicellular, although microscopic organism to survive for 24,000 years while frozen, could they be learned and applied to humans?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that could work?
We're talking about Austin Powers now.
Right?
Yeah, no.
Either that or, what was it? I don't remember the name of the movie.
I'm going to say no. I mean, it has to be something so specific, and it's makeup that is not allowing anything to deteriorate the genetic material as it's in the G0 stasis. I mean,
right. And so this is the key point. When freezing happens, usually ice crystals are the big problem. You freeze and the ice starts forming. Crystals are sharp and they burst cells. And so the cells might freeze, but then they're never going to reawaken and live. They won't survive because everything will leak out as they thaw because there's big holes in their cell membranes. These little organisms have a mechanism that allows them to withstand the formation of ice crystals. They have some kind of mechanism to shield their cells and the organelles within them from the harm of low temperatures. So,
from the temperature, from potential radiation, I don't know how bad that is once you're in the permafrost, but it's still got to be taking place. And then there's just at the cellular level, things start devouring each other. even in a bacteria. Like it's just
So one of the things I was thinking about is that rotifers don't have blood. They have like an open
Mhm.
circulatory system. So it would follow that since they have constant exchange with their environment in that way, that they might not be as fragile when it comes to keeping things inside the body a certain status quo.
Yeah. The big key to what's exciting about these organisms, not just that they reanimated and there was survival at stake. What is the most important part about survival? Reproduction.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, reproduction. And so they were able to reproduce using a clonal process, parthenogenesis, to create another organism from them. They were able to, after freezing, produce more of these 24,000-year-old bedelloid rotifers.
life continues to find a way.
Indeed.
And I think another big question related to this, though, yes, okay, mechanisms, molecular mechanisms related to cryogenics and being able to freeze and thaw mammals, humans, maybe at some point in the future. But huge question, what about all of the Siberian permafrosts that are thawing?
Great question.
Does this mean if the thawing happens at a decent pace, will they survive? Will organisms like this that are in the ice return to compete with the organisms that are alive now?
And what will that do to that ecosystem?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are any
Will
of them
they
carrying
disintegrate?
bacteria that the environment's not used to anymore?
Yeah.
I don't know. I still kind of am always falling on that side when there's a conversation like this of it's such an arms race to keep up with all of the other things in the niches that, boy, I just assume anything that jumps in this late in the game is going to be defenseless. Now,
Right.
we
It
could
could
say,
be.
everything
Yeah.
has moved on and has forgotten how to defend against its particular strategy, and that's possible. But there's so many things competing so ruthlessly, and that arms race has been going on so long that I wouldn't like the odds of coming in late in the game. I just
And
very doubtful.
And I guess we're all going to be part of that giant
Experiment.
experiment.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Oh, God.
Speaking of experiments, Justin, you want to talk about raising children?
Oh, well, yes. In this day and age of two-income families, with busy work schedules and long commutes, there's little time for meaningful interactions with children. That's where robots can help.
Great.
Researchers at the University of California, Santa Cruz, King's College London, and a company called Sproutel have developed a socially assistive robot specifically designed to aid emotional regulation in children. The robot looks like a fuzzy stuffed animal, looks like a kid's toy. It responds to a child's touch via a simulated heartbeat. When the creature is nervous, it has a rapid heartbeat, calming down and reducing its movements as the child caresses or hugs it. It even makes a little purring sound when it has been sufficiently soothed. Researchers evaluated their robot in a series of initial experiments where children and their parents were asked to interact with the robot and share their feedback. The feedback they collected was highly promising, as all the 25 children who engaged with the prototype said that they enjoyed it and they wanted to keep it for longer. Which means they took the kids' stuffies away at the end of the experiment? You go too far with your science experiment on children. I was really struck by the positive impact that was reported by children and parents in our field study, said Catherine Isbister of UC Santa Cruz, who was apparently not present when the toys were ripped from the arms of the children. We are currently conducting an NIH-funded trial for a smart fidget ball that we developed to help those with ADHD to focus, a collaboration with Julie Schweitzer at the University of California, Davis. Peter Slovak, researcher at King's College London, is continuing to explore the use of the fuzzy creature in various emotion regulation contexts with a range of populations, including children, adolescents, and youth.
Would you raise your children with a robot? Even if the science says, hey, it works. The robots can teach them values.
Well,
are we there yet?
I don't think I am. I think, but here's the thing too. There's something that reminds one of having a pet, like having a cat or a dog or something growing up, and knowing when the dog is happy and knowing what you're doing that's upsetting it. And if a kid can't have a pet, they've got allergies, they live in a building that doesn't allow it, as a simulation for that sort of thing, yeah, maybe I could see that. As just another kid's toy, yeah, I guess I could see that. I would probably not object. I don't like the idea of it replacing that which I feel like hugs.
Yeah, that's not great.
Human contact? Yeah.
Human contact. It's a great thing.
Which is important.
But also, this is also being directed at kids that might be having problems elsewise. To sort of, the idea is they've also been working on different types of fidgety things, so that when a kid is occupied or preoccupied with an object, or in this case, a heartbeat of a stuffed animal, it takes that anxiety or the fixation problem, if it's ADD or whatever it is, and sort of places it in this secondary object, allowing them to concentrate better, is the idea behind it.
I mean, let's be real. Robots are raising our children. It's called an iPad.
Thanks.
I'm just saying for people listening to this going like, I would never. Actually, we're teaching our kids a lot of things via technology now. I think, yes, replacing other things, bad. But especially for children that have problems processing and expressing and reading emotions, this could be a cool tool.
But I think additionally, it's they're cute little stuffed animals, and it's an interactive toy. It's a toy that can respond, and like you said, Justin, if it's responding to the child, and like you said, maybe they can't have a cat that can purr. Maybe they don't have a dog that can come and ask for snuggles at just the right moment. And having a little toy, a blanket, something. This is better than a blanket because it's a little bit interactive. It gives them something. It responds. So I can see how this could be very useful.
So it's in preprint. They haven't totally published the study yet. I didn't see, at least in the press release, anything about a control group, because I found like my favorite stuffy was like all I needed to be cool when I was a kid. So these are stuffed animals. Like, how do you separate the stuffed animal from this whole heartbeat interaction thing that they've created on top of it? Because stuffed animals kids love and find soothing. I mean, it could have a favorite blanket. It could be like whatever.
All right, Blair. Yes. You can outsmart this stuffed animal robot. Tell me about outsmarting bacteria.
Yes.
Yeah, how do we do that?
So much talk of vaccines in the news. They're all the rage. But it would be great if we could get some really good vaccines towards a lot of bacteria that like to evolve and mutate, and they're just a constant moving target. And a lot of the time they become more deadly as they mutate and evolve, right? And so researchers at ETH Zurich and the University of Basel have looked at how to exploit this mechanism to come up with an effective vaccine against bacteria. So they use this on salmonella, and they developed a vaccine that instead of trying to kill the bacteria, no, it just pushes and pressures and guides their evolution to make them weak. So they can use it to drive evolution in a certain direction, and in this case, something they would consider a dead end. So they inoculated mice with different vaccines against Salmonella typhimurium and observed how the salmonella in the animal's guts modified their genes to escape the vaccine's effects. And that lets scientists then identify the full spectrum of potential mutations and then produced a combination vaccine to push them in a particular direction. That caused an important sugar coating on the surface to atrophy. And so affected bacteria could still multiply in the gut, but were largely unable to infect body tissues and cause disease. So this is in tests on mice. And it was shown in this test to be more effective than preventing salmonella in existing vaccines for pigs and chickens. So it's a pretty interesting idea to kind of recognize, okay, the bacteria is going to mutate. What if we push it in the right direction? Then you don't make super bugs, right?
Forcing the mutational hand of the bacteria. Well, you're going to do better this way. That's right. You're going to get what you want this way. And then you die. And then we know how we can still control you.
For some reason, this feels safer to me. It feels like if it doesn't quite work all the way, you're not going to end up with a super bug. You're just going to end up with something that doesn't respond to the guiding vaccine, that doesn't actually even try to kill it, right? Like it's just, I think it's interesting because it might be effective. It might be more effective than just trying to kill the bacteria, but it also might be less effective, but more effective in the long run because you're not pushing you're not pushing an arms race, I guess.
I think that's really interesting, is taking our understanding of arms races, of how the ratcheting up of kind of predator prey or the changes necessary for survival, kind of understanding what we know to be important for a particular species of bacteria or a virus, say, and outsmarting it. That, I mean, isn't that what our big brains are for? Yeah. That's fascinating. I hope I don't know. I'd love to see, I can't wait to see where this goes and whether it develops, whether this is developed as a way of fighting things off in the future.
Yeah, we're just going to make that bacterial infection just so weak you don't even feel it anymore.
The devolution. That's right. You're just going to be quiet now, bacterial infection, and then we can take care of you. Well, this has nothing to do with bacteria, but it has everything to do with treating depression. Researchers this week reported on their phase 2 clinical trial. This is researchers publishing in Science Translational Medicine out of the University of Chicago's Department of Anesthesia and Critical Care. Their work using nitrous oxide, laughing gas, or you might know it as the propellant in whipped cream canisters, or you might know it as any number of uses that we actually have for nitrous oxide. Laughing gas may allow for happiness. In this recent study, they determined that giving the people in the study, the patients in the study, a 25% concentration. So normally, if you go to the dentist and ask for laughing gas, they're going to give you 70% concentration, and that's going to keep you sedated. You may have some negative side effects, some nausea, not feeling so good afterwards, but they had found in a phase 1 trial that 50% worked really well, but there were a lot of these side effects. And so in the phase 2, they wanted to know whether or not a lower dose could work. And so they gave people a pretty 3 groups. They had nitrous oxide at 50% concentration, one at 25% concentration, one a placebo group, with 1 3-hour inhalation session per month for 3 months. And they found that by the end of the study, 85% of patients had improved, 55% had a treatment response, which means at least a halving of their depressive symptoms, and 40% were in remission. Laughing gas, nitrous oxide.
Wow.
We'll see where it goes. It was the researcher on the study Peter Nagel said that he had been working as an anesthesiologist and knew about nitrous oxide for decades and knew that it's an antagonist of NDMA glutamate receptors. These are involved in long-term memory formation. They are also affected by ketamine. And because of the recent work looking into ketamine as a possible treatment for depression, he said, wait a minute, they're acting on the same receptors. Maybe nitrous oxide will work too. And so they started the studies. And lo and behold, it seems like it might have an effect, and it's not as controlled a substance. So it could potentially be an easily accessible, not high cost compound that can be used to effectively treat depression in clinically depressed patients without much difficulty.
Yeah.
Could be interesting.
What does it feel like for somebody that's doing this 3-hour inhalation session? Do we think?
No idea.
I wonder if you'd just be super lightheaded.
Yeah.
What? You could also maybe go to sleep, right?
You probably could just go to sleep for, because you're lying there for 3 hours. So yeah, you could probably watch a movie, go to sleep, just be super relaxed for a little while and then start feeling better. And the effect of these sessions lasts for several weeks after the sessions. We are not recommending that anybody go to their local whipped cream aisle. This is this is a clinical study. And this is
that would also be
doctors
100%.
Working.
So that would
Please do not.
Yeah.
Gordon
Disclaimer.
Favorite comment in the chat room. Laughing gas may allow for happiness in quotation marks. But you already established it's the propellant for whipped cream. What more do you need?
Right? I mean, it is. There we go. Yeah. 2 in 1. All right, Justin, take us to our next story. Are we going hardcore?
Are we doing what? Oh, yeah.
We are. We're going to go metal.
We are going hardcore. A core of a planet, in fact.
Okay.
Yeah, a failed planet. This is an asteroid worth an estimated 10 quintillion US dollars. That's a 10 with, I think, 18 zeros after it. With 10 quintillion US dollars is going to get a closer look as NASA is scheduled to launch the Psyche mission in 2022 and should be arriving at 16 Psyche asteroid in 2026. 16 Psyche is long thought to be the exposed iron core of a small planet that had failed to form in the earliest days of our solar system. It's out there in the asteroid belt. However, a University of Arizona-led research study suggests the asteroid might not be that metallic or even as dense as it was once thought, and hints at a maybe different origin story for it. Scientists have been interested in 16 Psyche because of its presumed origins. Of course, if that's true, it would provide a nice opportunity to look at the exposed core of a planet up close. We could go land on it, check it out, and see what might be in the core of our own planet, if there's any relation. Right? So also the asteroid is huge. It's very noticeable. It makes up 1%. This one asteroid makes up 1% of the material of the asteroid belt. It is approximately the size of Massachusetts, which, if you do the conversion, is about 7 Rhode Islands.
Thanks for that. Okay.
Well, we're always doing, ice sheet, glacier breaks off. It's the side of Rhode Island. I figured, that's more of a scientific measurement than Massachusetts. Nobody uses Massachusetts in science.
No.
Rhode Island all the time. So this was first spotted by an Italian astronomer in 1852. And the 16 in its name is because it is just the 16th asteroid that was ever discovered. This information is from University of Arizona. Is from an undergraduate student, David Cantillo, who is lead author of the paper, published in Planetary Science Journal. It proposes that 16 Psyche is 82.5% metal, which still sounds really high. 7% low iron, approximating 10.5, Carbonicus crondite. So basically, it's a rubble pile, mostly, with a density of around, what is it? Empty space within its body is around 35%. So pretty porous, which is sort of not what we were expecting. We were expecting something a lot denser because of the size. So the old estimates were 95% metal and much, much denser than this one. So it is probably not an exposed core of an early planet, much more likely just a biggest rubble pile that we have found out there.
Yeah, if it's lighter, less dense, it sounds more like I don't know, a tufa kind of, volcanic material that probably is full of air. Maybe it was shot off during a massive impact. Maybe it is just a gravel pile that has a lot of light dust that holds it together. Yeah.
So it might be getting devalued a bit, but it's still pretty iron rich from what's being studied so far. So it's probably worth, maybe just 1 quintillion.
But going and getting a look at it, we'll know more for sure. So that's going to be good. We don't know what we're going to get yet, do we?
No, and that's the thing. The opportunity to study it, regardless, is coming. So that's going to be very exciting.
To look at our psyche. Even though I know that's not where. Anyway, Blair, you want to school us now?
Yes. So sometimes a scientist takes their own time to go into a school classroom, and they have an amazing, enlightening time with the students. And another time, the scientist walks into a classroom and gets schooled. So this is from the Florida Museum of Natural History. And Victor Perez, who is a doctoral student at the Florida Museum of Natural History, was guiding students through a math exercise. And this was looking at 3D printed replicas of fossil teeth from a megalodon. The idea was to use commonly used equations based on tooth height to estimate the shark size. Just a very simple, this is how paleontologists do it. How big's the megalodon? But students got a wide range of sizes for that megalodon, from 40 to about 148 feet in length for the same set of teeth.
Whoa. That's something wrong.
Yeah, so you can imagine
right, if there's
at first,
such a range.
Or the methodology.
Yeah.
He was like, all right, did you use the equation wrong? Did you forget to fix your units? Like, what is happening? Because there was a mathematical error somewhere in here. Why did we have this wide range? It turns out that these equations that have been used by scientists since 2002 that have just been blindly accepted in paleontology, they're not as accurate as we thought. So
really,
yeah,
with a range like that.
Yeah. So megalodon sharks, they shed thousands of teeth over a lifetime. Sharks have this thing called the tooth whorl, which is like the tooth conveyor belt, right? So they're constantly losing teeth in this cartilaginous jaw. It's almost impossible to keep the teeth in there. And so the jaw decomposes over time, but the teeth don't because of enamel. It's really great stuff that we have on the outside. So all of that to say, that's why you get a lot of shark teeth in the fossil record, but not a lot else because they're cartilaginous skeletons and it's all kind of soft and squishy, falls apart. So they've been using great white sharks as a proxy, as a model, and then you kind of extrapolate based on the shape and size of the teeth in their mouth to the megalodon, and then you can make some distinctions based on that. They have a couple vertebrae for megalodons, but mostly it's just teeth. And so you have to identify where in the jaw the tooth belongs and then measure the length. And so this is from a nearly complete set of teeth. So you're pretty sure where the teeth belong. It was a CT scan that then the classroom did their own 3D printing of the teeth, which I think is so fun.
That's
and
great.
Then they were able to measure with a real ruler the size of these things and the shape and arrange them and set up their megalodon. So they were supposed to, as kind of like an art project, they're supposed to make a whole megalodon jaw out of these 3D printed teeth. Regardless, these equations are wrong.
Well, no, okay. So the idea is depending on where it is, you measure it, and that will relate to its overall size. So the equation that they're doing is fine. The math is working out. It's just the principle behind it doesn't actually fit
because based on the height of the teeth, there's still some play as to where in the mouth the tooth goes. And that is really the problem. So if the tooth is in the back of the mouth versus in the front, that's going to dictate a different size shark. And so what the suggestion of, Perez released in a community newsletter, this kind of quandary, and Teddy Badeau, an avocational paleontologist in France, suggested to measure the width instead of the height of the teeth, which is the great thing about the width is that it's very specific how big the jaw itself can be because they have to go next to each other.
Yep.
So there's a lot less play there. And so they developed a whole new set of equations based on tooth width. Then they analyzed fossil teeth from 11 individuals representing 5 species, including the Megalodon. And then they developed this new model. And the new model still have a range of error of about 10 feet, but that's certainly a lot better than 100 feet. And so since then, they're transitioning to potentially using this new equation. And on top of that, Victor Perez teaches this lesson still, but very differently. So he can talk about the nature of science and unanswered questions and how conventional ways of thinking of things aren't always right.
How conventional ways of thinking can be overturned by your students.
Yeah. Fantastic.
That's great.
Yeah. And so with this new equation, there are some estimates that the Megalodon's actually bigger than we previously thought, pushing it up to 65 feet in length, which is
that's terrifying.
A couple of school buses. Yeah.
Well, it depends on the school bus, but I can.
Yeah, not normal school bus.
All right. So my last story for the opening stories tonight is a bit political. I want you to listen to this clip of a House Natural Resources hearing here in the United States.
From what's been testified to, the Forest Service and the BLM, you want very much to work on the issue of climate change. I was informed by the immediate past director of NASA that they have found that the moon's orbit is changing slightly, and so is the Earth's orbit around the sun. We know there's been significant solar flare activity. And so is there anything that the National Forest Service or BLM can do to change the course of the moon's orbit or the Earth's orbit around the sun? Obviously, that would have profound effects on our climate.
This is Louis Gohmert, right?
This is Representative Louis Gohmert, a Republican
representative
from Texas.
of government for the United States of America.
Yes, from the United States of America.
Boy, am I proud.
Yeah. So here's the take I have on this, which is that he knows better, but he is in the position of needing to muddy the waters to continue to keep the conversation playing for old ideas, like solar flares being responsible for the heating of the planet, that it's because of the position of the Earth in our orbit, it's the solar flares from the sun, that these factors we have no control over are the reason we have climate change. And what I want to say is a lot of people online have been saying, he must be so dumb. And I don't think he is. I think he's a politician and he's playing the game. But what we end up having is a lot of conversation now about this topic. And no, we're not going to move the orbit of the Earth. No, we're not going to move the orbit of the moon, because that would have profound effects, not on climate so much as everything on the planet. The moon's going to do its own moving over time as it slowly gets further and further away from the Earth and escapes our gravitational pull. That's going to happen over a very long period of time. And in the meantime, what we do have control over are our own actions. We have control over what we regulate. We have control over where we put our money. We have control over how we use our technology. We have control over how we build our infrastructure, how we help poorer countries develop their infrastructure. These are things we have control over. No, we cannot control the orbit of the Earth, the orbit of the moon, or solar flares on the sun.
Right. But if we can't do that, if we can't control the orbit of the moon, that means there's no point in trying to do anything about global warming.
That's his point.
Okay.
That is his point. That is what he is trying to put forward. And I would like to just say that we need to continue to have conversations because they're pushing these ideas, and the science indeed is in that it is our activity that is promoting climate change. It is our emissions of carbon dioxide that are acidifying the oceans, that are changing the atmosphere and its ability to hold heat. That's us. And we need to accept that, and we need to talk about it a lot more. Yeah.
I don't understand.
I am tired of the yelling of these voices. We need to yell more.
I don't understand this strategy only because I feel like if he's trying to speak to people who aren't skeptical of the things that he's saying and don't understand the science, then they won't understand the intricacy of what he's trying to do. Like, do you know what I mean? It seems kind of weird that he's taking this roundabout trip to this argument.
Because people who listen to him and have voted for him and, are in the know because they're in the special club that are in the know of the things he knows, he is reiterating knowledge that they are that they're confirmed in, that they agree with. And so it's the confirmation bias. And so they'll continue to hold on to these ideas.
It is, but then we have to locate it somewhere else. Somewhere else, there are stories circulating that versions of global warming, that it's just sun flares, that it's just the orbit of the Earth changing, So it's confirming all these. Now, those sources can come from anywhere. I've heard them on a religious station before, where they were talking about Jesus was doing some stuff, whatever. But the sort of a religious tie-in to this is that humans can't control anything. Only a higher power controls the weather, the climate, everything. So that we actually don't have a role to play in it, even on that level.
We don't control the weather, but we can influence the climate, and we are influencing it. It is these language differences, the slight nuances in the difference between control and influence. It is the differences between confirming that it's nature's responsibility versus we play a part in nature and are impacting it. Yeah. So
and that's why climate change.
They're different narratives.
But bottom line is never trust a politician from Texas on climate change or anything that's created by the fossil fuel industry. Never, just saying, but you don't trust a Kentucky senator or congressperson on the health effects of tobacco.
And never trust a Sicilian when death is on the line.
What is that? What did I do this time?
You're supposed to laugh and then fall off screen.
Thump. Oh my goodness. This is This Week in Science. Thank you so much for listening to our program, for being a part of this show. If you love the show, please tell a friend about it today. Help us grow. Okay, let's dive into another joyful part of our program. The COVID update. Okay, so there, we love it. We love to hate it. It is a thing that is with us. But I want to start out the COVID update with a letter from a listener. Todd Barnell wrote in to say, I know it can't be fun doing the COVID update, but I want to let you know how helpful they are for us out here. My partner and I both have high-stress jobs in the public, me assisting tribal environmental staff around the country and her helping people in our county navigate the legal system. Both of us have seen our workload significantly increase during the pandemic. We've been very strict about protocols throughout, which has caused issues with friends as things open up. She's taking a few days off here and there, but hasn't gone anywhere. I haven't even taken days off. I only say all this to illustrate we're both bloody exhausted. And I found myself actually questioning my approach and saying, well, the CDC. We've both been annoyed with how things have been handled by the feds lately, and it will have repercussions on entities making people go straight back into the front line with the public soon. But I found myself actually thinking, oh, screw it. And I don't do that. But I have to recognize I am not at my best anymore. I needed your slap in the face. It pulled me up straight, seeing you, Blair, and Justin all agreeing on something. I know all three of you are experiencing just as much trauma and frustration as everyone who is trying to navigate all the craziness and still trying to make the world a better place. I know you all must be exhausted, but I just want to thank you for taking a breath and finding the energy to fight the good fight for science and rationality. Even those of us who freaking know better need to be reminded in these trying days. Seriously, I extend a heartfelt and sincere thank you to all three of you. Take care of yourselves, and I wish you peace and good health. Thank you so much,
that
Todd.
Was so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really just wonderful to get your email and to hear that our COVID update actually is appreciated. No, yeah, and we do generally agree when it comes to the COVID update,
That's
and we
true.
learn things from each other.
You know what? I agree with you on that.
Hey, I also agree.
Yes, agreeing. This is great. Okay, jumping into the actual news. A preprint out in the Med Archive suggests that investigation of over 55,000 employees of the Cleveland Clinic system suggests that people who were symptomatic and tested positive for COVID-19 might not need to get vaccinated. The data show that previously infected individuals did not get reinfected during the time frame of the study, similarly to those who had been vaccinated, while people who had been unexposed and were not vaccinated did have cases. A caveat, though, does suggest that this is not indicative of immunity to the new variants of concern, which have shown small amounts of breakthrough infections in vaccinated individuals, even. So there are still questions as to how far that immunity goes, but people who have tested positive and had symptoms may not need to get vaccinated.
Nice.
Yeah. This could be a middle ground, actually, for a lot of the colleges, universities that are requiring vaccination for people to go back to school. Maybe you can show a positive test or vaccination. Maybe there are other ways through this. And if not everybody, especially here in the United States, not everyone wants to get vaccinated, but if you've had it, maybe you're protected a little bit more. And if you're protected, you're protecting others, potentially. So that means we might have more extra vaccines to be able to send to countries that really need it, where they're having big outbreaks, or to get to communities that really need it. So there are upsides to this for sure.
Well, there's also, without painting with too broad of a brush, there probably is a pretty good Venn diagram of people who were out and about, not being super careful, not wearing a lot of masks, and people who don't want to get vaccinated. So there probably is a good number of people who did get infected who also don't want to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
So that could help. That is kind of a ray of hope for me personally.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at the numbers and I'm like, 51% of the United States, we're getting there, but we're not quite there. We're not hitting. And then you think, well, maybe we do have another 10, 20% of people who have already been infected, 30% even. Potentially, I mean, we've cases are going down, hospitalizations are going down. We still have to see what happens with these variants of concern, but maybe the United States is coming up to that point of actually getting better. Just here in the United States, we still have to look at this as a global, worldwide pandemic, and that is something that needs to be taken into account. So Representative Louis Gohmert wasn't the only person saying all sorts of wild things on the internet this week or in the world this week. Contrary to the testimony of a known anti-vaccine doctor in Ohio yesterday, COVID-19 vaccines will not cause keys, coins, and other metal items to stick to your body. The vaccines will not make you magnetic.
I'm sorry, what?
I can't believe the CDC had to actually put this on their fact checks.
Yeah.
You also just said a doctor said that.
Yes, a doctor of osteopathy. She has a practice, but she is also one of the top 12 people on social media spreading anti-vaccine information. So, yeah.
I feel like this is against the Hippocratic Oath, right?
I would think. She spent 45 minutes with her witness testimony and her followers who came to stick keys to their faces that then fell off. But she went to Ohio because Ohio is voting on vaccine mandates and whether or not businesses will be allowed to ask for proof of vaccination or other proof of the fact that they won't be getting people sick if they want to come into their businesses.
If that were true, then I could prove I was vaccinated by sticking a key to my face.
Yes, exactly. But the amount of vaccine that is injected is not enough, even if it were pure magnetic material to even allow for that to happen. And the fact that it's going to get distributed through your entire body. No, there are no metals in the vaccines. So this is not possible. And in fact, if you want to try, on a hot, sticky summer day, if you've got oil on your skin, or I don't know if you want to blow on hot air on the back of a key or a coin, you too can stick things to your skin.
Yeah, it's the spoon trick on your nose.
It is. Yeah, we learned this in grade school, and now it is being used alongside the 5G theory that the vaccines make you receptive to 5G.
I go back to the reference, the disclaimer at the beginning of this show. What if we are the most intelligent life form in the galaxy?
What if? Yeah. Well, anyway, the vaccines are not going to make you magnetic. They're going to protect you very well from infection by the SARS-CoV-2 virus and the variants, including the Delta variant, which is one of the most rapidly spreading variants of concern right now, that's spreading among the unvaccinated. So if you have not been infected, have not been vaccinated, please consider vaccination to protect yourself and your community. On the mask front, we know on social media, anti-masking is a big thing. Masks don't work. Justin, you've even said on the show, well, think about smoke. And if you're breathing air and stuff, it's like smoke particles. And people say, well, if it's like smoke particles, smoke goes through masks. A UC Davis engineering professor did a study looking at surgical masks, had people wear surgical masks, which are a little loose fitting and can have air gaps around the sides. They're not the same as the N95s, which are made to fit very tightly on your skin, around your nose and your mouth. Surgical masks are known to be slightly less effective at preventing viral spread than N95 masks. That's why they're not the same level of protection. Again, below surgical masks, cloth masks are another step down in protection. Each level is a level of protection. Yet, this researcher had volunteers breathe into a machine that would sense the airflow down to 5 microns, I believe, was the size, very small particle size, had them talk or cough directly in from the side to see how the airflow from the side of surgical masks would work. And they found that, yes, indeed, even though there are air gaps, wearing a mask versus not wearing a mask reduces airflow in such a way that would reduce viral transmission.
I mean, I've said this once and I'll say it again. Nothing has proved to me how effective masks are more than going into a porta potty wearing a mask. I'll never go into porta potty without one ever again.
Ever again.
It's just so much more pleasant. And that's the thing, is like, how do smells happen? They're particles.
They're particles.
So the mask works.
Mm-hmm. They do work. You might still smell stuff, but you're not smelling as much stuff.
It's like 10%.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's a difference. Yeah. And then finally,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, but even if it's leaking and some of the air is transferring, part of the thing is your protection from other people. If they're wearing a mask, is that their breath is not going out towards you. It's not being expelled
right.
at great distance. It's going, and there's a little cloud around them more than it's
right.
getting projected in different directions.
Which is important for considering how viral transmission takes place. Is somebody just spitting into your face, or is it just general stuff in the air, but less of it? It still reduces the amount of it that gets into the air. And then finally, we have asked previously on the show about mixing and matching vaccine doses, and now there have been a few studies actually starting to look into this, and they seem to work fine. And at least with the Pfizer dose first, followed by AstraZeneca, there are no significant side effects. Everything seems to work just great. There is a researcher actually embarking on doing a full comparison of the 12 different combinations of vaccines that are currently available. So Johnson & Johnson and an AstraZeneca, or the Moderna and a Pfizer, or, the various combinations to see how they all work. But so far, although limited, the studies seem to suggest they're effective and they don't harm you. Mixing and matching is not bad.
Great.
That's all we want. Have it
and
work.
It could actually be beneficial because you're getting potentially different bits of things.
You know what? When the time comes for my booster, just go ahead and mix up a vat of jungle juice vaccine for me and I'm good.
I'll take it. Whatever it needs. Whatever I need. Do any of you have any COVID stories for this week?
I guess I do. I guess I could jump to one of the other stories I've got. It's a population-based study that was published in JAMA. It's not a COVID story, but it is a vaccine story.
Cool.
They found that flu vaccination during pregnancy does not lead to an increased risk of adverse early childhood health outcomes. So pregnant people are not more susceptible to acquiring influenza infections in the first place. They are at an increased risk of severe illness and complications if they do get the flu during pregnancy. For this reason, all pregnant people are advised to receive a flu shot each year. However, only 36% of pregnant people are getting the shot.
Because people are concerned.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think my friend who was pregnant last year got a different flu shot than I did when we all got them at work. It was a different dose or something, but there was a slight difference in what was administered to her.
They do have a variety of different flu shot formulations. They even have the nasal mist flu inhalant. So there are a variety. She could have asked for a very specific formulation also. Yeah. But yeah, I think the interesting thing is, the question is, you're doing risk benefit analysis, right? You could get the flu, and then that would put you and your baby at huge risk. And the question is, how much of a risk is it going to be to do this flu shot? And we're more afraid of the flu shot because it's this pharmaceutical thing. It's man-made. It's not, and there are a lot of reasons why people might have fear.
Well, and when you're doing cost-benefit analysis, you're 100% sure you're getting the shot if you say you're going to get the shot. But you're not 100% sure you're going to get the flu if you don't get the shot. And I think that's where people's brains go, I'll take the risk, even though
I haven't had the flu in years.
It's not a true cost-benefit analysis because the potential cost of getting the flu is far higher.
Yeah,
And that's what the study is, right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is as long as it's safe. So there were anti-nausea medications that were given in the past that led to birth defects. There have been missteps in the medical community towards pregnant women because, like we discovered just last week, women don't get studied
No.
for the most important piece of, what's the most important thing to evolution survival?
Reproduction.
And it's like massively understudied. So it's no wonder that there have been these horrendous missteps in the past. Dr. Deshane Fell, she's an associate professor of epidemiology at Faculty of Medicine at University of Ottawa, went out on this study. 28,000 children from birth up to an average age of about 3.5 years in this study. I don't know that this has even been properly studied before. She looked at all the immune-related health conditions, asthma, ear infection, other types of infections, non-immune-related things, neoplasm, sensory impairment, non-specific health needs, emergency department visits, hospitalizations didn't increase. End of this, it's perfectly fine, has no health effect on the children, other than getting them through your pregnancy without having to deal with influenza. So, Dr. Fell is now also has begun this sort of work on the COVID-19 vaccines. This is the thing. They're not allowing pregnant women to take the vaccine in many cases.
Mm.
So
I know several that got it.
You do know several? Okay.
Yes.
Well, it was a big question back in December because they hadn't tested it on pregnant women at that point in time. But then over the next couple of months, data did come in that suggested it was okay. And so I think it's become more of a...
It's shifting.
Yeah, it's been shifting and it's been recommended more and more because they're starting to see antibodies.
Yeah.
In the bambini.
In the fetus, yes.
In the fetus, yes.
So that's exactly it. Not only has the research shown it's safe for pregnant women and their baby, but also, yes, that it will protect the newborn and the mother from COVID. Yeah.
Protect your children.
Yeah. Protect yourself, protect your children. Yeah.
The unborn bambininis, they don't actually get the shot themselves. You do.
Yeah.
They never have to. That's even better.
You're feeding them. You're pumping them full of beneficial bacteria. You're giving them their microbiome.
Antibodies.
Give them the antibodies too.
No,
just push it all through.
This is This Week in Science. Thank you for joining us for another episode. If you love the show, head over to TWIS.org and click on our Patreon link. Our Patreon link will take you to our Patreon community where you can choose to support TWIS. $10 or more a month, and we will thank you by name at the end of the show. You also get some fun gifties. We have fun stickers and t-shirts and other things, depending on your level of support. And you'll get to join our Discord, which is popping right now, I do have to say. So if you want to really, really be a part of this community and help TWIS grow, help support our weekly endeavor to educate and discuss science, please support us on Patreon. We can't do this without you. We thank you for your support. And as we come back right now with more This Week in Science, it is time for Blair's Animal Corner with Blair.
With Blair.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. You want to hear about animals? She's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
What you got, Blair?
Well, you tell me, do you want puppies or hunger?
Oh, wow. What if I don't want to? I'd rather go hungry than have a puppy.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about hunger. So I definitely suffer from hunger. It is the phenomena when you are so hungry that you want to destroy. And so new research shows that humans are not the only ones who can turn irritable and aggressive between meals. This is a finding from University of East Anglia, which shows that hanger behavior in male Drosophila melanogaster, or fruit flies, will get hangry during increased prolonged periods of food deprivation. They grew more combative the longer they went without food to a point, but after 24 hours, the quarrelsome behavior plateaued. They just got too tuckered. And so hangry behaviors in previous studies from Oxford have shown that potentially there are other distantly related animals to humans that show this quote unquote hangry behavior. But the fruit flies, this is something very interesting. It shows this very kind of baseline understanding of this behavior. But why? What would the benefit be of getting aggressive when you're hungry? So you would expect potentially that being hungry would make you weaker. You'd be weakened, you'd be deprived of nutrients. You're just, I can't go on anymore. I'm so hungry. And if that was the case, you would expect that hungry individuals would be less likely to win fights. And that also means that in turn, they would be less aggressive during those times because they're going to lose. So talk about cost benefit analysis, knowing you're probably going to lose, you're not going to start a fight. At least if you're an animal. Anyway, on the other hand, hungry individuals might be more motivated to fight or compete for food, which would lead to aggression or hanger. And so that is what it looks like researchers saw in the fruit flies. Hungry male fruit flies displayed more hostility towards each other. They were more likely to aggressively lunge at each other and to swat at each other with their legs, which is called fencing. And they spent more time defending their food patches. They also found that increased aggression in food-deprived males could potentially result from a desperado effect, which means that individuals of poor condition...
I'm just imagining...
Putting on a cowboy hat.
Yes. Desperado.
Yes. Fly starts calling everybody partner.
Yes. So what it actually means is that individuals of poor condition engage in fights when they are likely to lose, against what I talked about a second ago, because they cannot gain fitness by not engaging at all. So basically, they're going for broke. But in the course of this study, it would appear they just get more aggressive as they get more hungry. The actual specific motivation is still unclear. They figured this out by scanning vials of male fruit flies, a total of 16 or 32 times. Each scan lasted 3 seconds. And in each scan, the observer recorded the number of lunges and tussles and the numbers of flies chasing, fencing, and occupying the food patch. So they were able to see these guys in the little vials. So other studies have shown that poor food conditions early in life have the opposite effect on aggression. So flies that grow up experiencing limited food are less aggressive as adults. So not only is the availability of food impacting their behavior, but when in their life cycle they experience food scarcity, also impacts their behavior. Are we different from fruit flies in that because we have such a more complex nervous system, there's so much more going on in our brain that we essentially just have processes shorting out when we're low on food, and that's why we get all hangry? Or is it based in this very far back kind of tree of life response, which is, I'm hungry, I need to defend my space and get more food, and I need to do that through aggression?
I mean, that makes sense. It really does make sense that to get resources, especially when there's competition, you have to be more aggressive about it. And you're not going to get anything if you don't try. And so the more scarce energy is, resources are in your system, your body is going, okay, you gotta fill the tank. Go do it. Yeah.
So there you go. Hunger, it has a basis in the evolutionary family tree.
We're all just like fruit flies.
Give me some rotting fruit.
I would rather, well, I mean, I guess that would be like wine, but that'd be fine.
Yeah.
That's not going to keep me from being hangry.
That leads to a
Then you're
different
drunk
issue.
and hangry.
Yeah. Yeah. And that'll all happen faster because you don't have any food in your stomach.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about puppies.
Okay, puppy time.
So I brought this story not because it's a huge kind of breakthrough in science, but because it is related to conversations we've had a few times over the past few months in relation to dogs versus wolves and their response to humans. And I thought this was an interesting new piece in that puzzle. So this was from the University of Arizona, looking at social skills in puppies and in adult dogs, and then also in wolves, to kind of see what's happening here. Is there something innate? Is there something that's learned? Is there a difference? And so they actually used dogs from the California-based Canine Companions, which is a service dog organization which serves clients with physical disabilities. They chose that because they were able to know the genetic lineage of every individual, and because of the way service dogs are raised, they could do performative tests on 8-week-old puppies that had pretty much never seen a human. So all of that together was kind of the perfect opportunity to test how puppies respond to humans. So they looked at 375 of these 8-week-old service dogs. They had
I have to say, this sounds like a terrible job.
Yeah, I'm going to go try to give treats to puppies for my research project. Who thought of this, man? Oh, boy.
Emily Bray, I'm going to come work in your lab.
Yeah. So these 8-week-old dogs had almost no interaction with humans, one-on-one interaction with humans. You know, humans brought food in and stuff like that, but they didn't really interact with the puppies before this. And then they were asked to perform a series of tasks to measure their social communication skills. So one of these we were just talking about, and that's why I wanted to bring this up, is they actually explain how this works. This is the one where they have 2 overturned cups. One has a treat in it and one does not. And they point at it. Do you remember we were talking about this? And we were like, maybe they're just smelling it. Aha! Yeah. I have a new piece of information on the research procedure. There is a treat taped to the inside roof of both cups, so they both smell like treats.
Aha.
Well done. Okay.
So that was very cool. So I wanted to share that as very neat. Good research design. So that was to ensure that they weren't just following the smell. And then in another version, the puppies watched as researchers placed a yellow block next to the cup instead of pointing to indicate where they should look for food. So this is a lot more just what's different versus following a human instruction, right? And so then in the other tasks, they wanted to see if puppies looked at human faces. And the researchers spoke to the puppies in dog-directed speech, which is basically like baby talk for dogs, which, come on, we're all, except for maybe Justin, guilty of. And then they measured how long the puppy held a gaze with that human who was talking to them. And then in the final task, it was an unsolvable task. I'm sure they got lots of pets and treats afterwards. Don't worry. They sealed a treat inside a closed container. It was impossible. And they presented it to the puppy and measured how often the puppy looked at the human for reassurance or help. So what did they find? Many of the puppies were responsive to humans' physical and verbal cues, but very few looked to humans for help with their unsolvable task. What that means is, just like with babies, it would appear that they are learning communication from us first before they can then provide their own communication back. So this is very similar to how human babies learn. Now, bringing in the genetics and the wolf part. So with the genetics, they wanted to look at whether the inherited genes explained the differences in the dog's abilities. And genetics explain more than 40% of the variation in puppies' abilities to follow human pointing gestures, as well as the variation in how long they engage in eye contact. So it's a lot. And it also, I will just throw in as my own anecdotal knowledge of these sorts of things, is usually these service dog places are only a limited select number of purebred breeds. And so that means if they're able to find a 40% connection in genetics, even within a breed, then this is where this study gets actually really applicable to the betterment of humans, which is that you could actually potentially pick out the best future service dogs based on genetics.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the best
People?
service people.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah, well, we could probably do that now, honestly. But anyway, so you might be able to predict before the puppy is born if that litter is going to be a good set of service dog candidates because they have the right genetic background. Now, this has to be, you have to tread carefully here. I will also throw in as my own editorial piece because dog breeds are already pretty seriously inbred. So this has to be done carefully because if you are trying to breed selectively for specific genes within an already purebred population, that can cause other unexpected defects. So this has to be done carefully and specifically, and who knows, someday maybe there will be some engineering involved. CRISPR those things in there, I don't know, but anyway, so there was that. The last piece I wanted to mention is that they did also compare this to previous studies with wolves. So wolves do not search out the help of humans when they are solving an unsolvable problem. So, but with adult dogs who have spent time with humans, they are constantly asking for reassurance from their human. And so this is where they think they can kind of parse out, okay, so these puppies really seem to be born with this understanding of how to key into a human's communications, but they have to learn based on this ancestral, almost wolf-like trait of not asking humans for help as they age. So this is some of the kind of squishy addition of these other research pieces in there. So still a lot to learn, but there does seem to be some innate human connection pieces in the genome of domestic dogs.
This is This Week in Science. If you are interested in a cool TWIS sweatshirt, I'm wearing one right now. It's pretty wonderful. There's a blue-footed booby on the back, and I really like it on this slightly chilly evening, springish leading into summer. But if you're interested in one of our pieces of merchandise, head over to twist.org and click on our Zazzle link. There's a lot of fun stuff for you in there. Yes,
Zazzle.
Many things. Help support TWIS and wear some fun clothing. All right, Justin, you want to tell us a story?
Oh, yeah. Last story of the night I got is, turns out women's mental health has a higher association with dietary factors than does men's mental health. This is according to new research at Binghamton University, State University of New York. Lena Bedashi, assistant professor of health and wellness studies at Binghamton University, has previously published some research on diet and mood, suggesting that a high-quality diet improves mental health generally. She wanted to test whether customization of diet improves mood among men and women ages 30 or older. And interestingly, they found that when they had the unhealthy dietary patterns, level of mental distress was much higher in women than in men, which confirmed that women are more susceptible to unhealthy eating than are men. Which that seems like something that I've just witnessed as the years have gone by, that men will eat anything.
I feel like this keys into the hanger conversation too, because
It does a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
if I eat garbage that doesn't last me to the next meal, then I get hangry.
Yeah, fast food, skipping breakfast, caffeine, high glycemic foods were all associated with mental distress in mature women. That sounds like a regular diet for most guys. Fruit and dark green leafy vegetables were associated with good mental health. But yeah, it is sort of interesting that the men just weren't, the mental states of the men didn't seem to be being as affected by what they ate.
At least in America, the diet culture thing
Mhm.
it's everywhere, but it targets women extra hard.
It
And
always
so
has. Yeah.
there is definitely a piece, especially with social media now, where you see the selective existence of your friends who only post their healthy meals. They don't post the disgusting McDonald's meal that they picked up on the way home or something like, you know what I mean? So there is a weird guilt complex to eating less healthy as well, which could potentially add to some of these effects.
Whereas men are likely only to share the most unhealthy meal, where
Look at this giant steak I ate.
that's wrapped in bacon, but you can't see it because it's covered in a layer of cheese.
Yeah.
Which is hidden under the sour cream, right? That's the picture we would share.
The food, you are what you eat, everybody. And it can affect your mood. It can affect all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a couple of stories, so I hope these last two stories make you happy. Well, it's not going to make you happy, but maybe it'll give you some tips on, how to live your life a little bit better. A couple of brainy studies that I wanted to bring to your attention. A new study by NIH, National Institute of Health Scientists, discovered that when you're learning something, like typing out a pattern, they apply this. They didn't study this, but they say maybe it could be applied to something like learning piano, what they call procedural memory, the doing of a procedure, that if you take short breaks in between little sprints of learning, that those short breaks are important. They looked at the brain waves, the brain activity during those short break periods, and found that they were quite different from when you were actually doing the learning of the procedure. When you take a short break, your brain rapidly plays back the brain activity that happened while you were learning whatever the procedure is. So you learn something and you do it and you do it and you do it. Say you do it like 10 times, and then you go, okay, I'm going to take a little break for a minute or two. During that short period of time before you do something again for a rapid burst, your brain is compressing that information and compiling it. It's running it over and over and over again. And it's not just the somatosensory cortex that's involved in that motor learning process. And that's what the researchers thought, is that it was pretty much only going to be your somatosensory cortex, all the motor learning areas. They also discovered that your hippocampus is involved. They didn't think hippocampus was involved in procedural memories, but lo and behold, hippocampus is popping off and coordinating things and talking with your somatosensory cortex the whole time. And so the old idea of learning things and then sleeping on it to get the information really deep into your brain, that still works. But what they have discovered is this new method of doing short periods of learning, followed by a short break, followed by another bit of learning, followed by another short break, allows your brain to actually have much better acquisition of memories. So if you're learning piano or some other instrument, or maybe, you want to be like Simone Biles and just learn that vault, then you better do your round off, full in, triple back, and then take a little break before you try it again.
What are you supposed to do during that break?
Nothing. Just relax.
Nothing at all.
Nothing. Yes.
You just do nothing.
Stare at the wall.
You can
Don't
do, and
read.
just don't do anything. You could stare at the wall. You could probably, you could daydream. You could, not just, it's just, you don't do anything, but you let your brain do its thing.
That's
your
the
brain
hard for me.
Try to do nothing. Try to do nothing. This was a really long time ago. We did a
Breathing
story.
is okay. Yes, Gord.
We did a story about students would look over a bunch of material for an exam, and then some of the students would go out drink that night, and some would go off to have other activities without drinking, whatever. The ones who drank did better on the next day exam. They scored higher. And what they think the reason is because after repeating this information, they also shut down the brain for new information because the drinking doesn't do as much memory forming. Slowed that whole process down. So the last information the brain had was the study. Whereas the other students might have watched a movie, they were out with friends, they were doing all this other stuff. They got more information input. The brain, as they slept, didn't know what to lock in and what not to lock in. But drinking was sort of a barrier. It just sort of like, okay, we're going to stop. Shut it down. They're drinking again. It just means your brain's not working as well when you're drinking. But it also means if you studied something earlier, you might have learned. So I would try to do nothing. I would try to not read, not look at the phone.
Don't learn anything else.
No. Do that repetition and then just sort of like eyes closed with till the alarm goes off and then go back to it to try to avoid making any confusion about what the brain should be focused on committing to memory.
What I think is really fascinating, though, is that we learn things, and as we learn them, the electrochemical signals that are happening in our neurons and connecting the entire learning network are all firing. You're doing an action, and all the neurons that allow that action to take place are firing, right? And then when you stop doing the action, they don't just play it back at normal speed. They fast forward it and watch it. Your brain fast forwards and watches that action over and over and over and over again. It's like, okay, we're going to repeat this over and over and over again. And so your brain is basically going through reenacting that same action just super fast when you're not doing it. Which it's just fascinating that it would start, that your brain works this way. Yeah. Super fast replay for learning. Oh, and for anyone who is younger in our audience, who is not considering continuing to study math as they progress in school, I beg you,
still important?
Please continue your math education. Please. Researchers looked at students 16 years and older. They were able to isolate people in the UK because at the age of 16, students can choose their further direction of study, and they can focus on maths-related study or non-math-related study. So they could actually pinpoint students that stopped learning math at a certain point in their education. Put them under an active fMRI machine, had them watch a movie to get their brain at rest, and then had them do a bunch of cognitive exercises. They were looking for differences in concentration of a neurotransmitter called GABA, and they discovered that there is a change in the concentration of GABA in the frontal cortex that is indicative of how much you studied math. And not just the GABA being apparent, the GABA is related to synaptic plasticity and cognitive ability. So studying math longer led to higher GABA concentrations. Higher GABA concentration was indicative of higher neuroplasticity, higher cognitive ability, and low GABA was actually predictive of your math performance and your math ability over a year and a half later. So your brain is good on math. Your brain, which is really weird because our brains did not evolve for math, but math helps organize our brains, and our brain responds to math in a way that influences its development. Even at kind of what you might think of as a later stage of young adulthood, right? 16, the late teens into early 20s.
Maybe early hominids were physics geniuses. They were calculating the arc and velocity of projectiles as they hunted.
I think we're done with our show.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any more stories.
No, I guess not.
No.
we don't have any more stories. Thank you all for listening to the show. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Shout outs to our team. Fada, thank you for your help with social media and show notes. Gord, thank you for manning the chat room, modding, helping me stay sane. Identity 4 for recording the show. Rachel, thank you for your wonderful assistance. And I would like to thank our Patreon sponsors for their generous support. Thank you to Pierre Vela Zarb, Ralph E. Figueroa, John Ratnaswamy, Kira, Carl Kornfeld, Melanie Stagman, De Cramster, Karen Tozzi, Andre Bassett, Woody MS, Chris Wozniak, Dave Bunn, Vegard Shefstad, Hal Snyder, Donathan Styles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, John Lee, Ali Coffin, Maddie Perrin, Gaurav Sharma, Shubru, Don Mundis, Stephen Alberon, Daryl Myshak, Stu Pollock, Andrew Swanson, Fredus 104, Sky Luke, Paul Ronovich, Kevin Reardon, Noodles, Jack, Brian Carrington, Matt Bass, Joshua Fury, Shauna Nina Lamb, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Gene Tellier, Steve Leisman, a.k.a. Zima, Ken Hayes, Howard Tan, Christopher Rappin, Dana Pearson, Richard, Brendan Minish, Johnny Gridley, Kevin Railsback, Flying Out, Christopher Dreyer, Mark Mazzaros, Artyom, Greg Briggs, John Atwood. This profile name is hilarious in the context of some other podcast. Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul, Matt Sutter, Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Mountain Sloth, Jim Drapeau, Sarah Chavez, Sue Doster, Jason Olds, Dave Neighbor, Eric Knapp, E.O., Kevin Parachan, Aaron Luthen, Steve DeBell, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paul Stanton, Paul Disney, Patrick Pecoraro, Tony Steele, Ulysses Adkins, Brian Condren, and Jason Roberts. Thank you for all of your support on Patreon. And if you would like to support us on Patreon, you can head over to twist.org and click on the Patreon link. And on next week's show, we will be speaking with researcher Angelique Cortals and members of her research team, Liliana Davalos and Diana Moreno Santillan, about their work on bat immunity. Don't miss it.
Yeah, we will be back Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, broadcasting live from our YouTube and Facebook channels and from twist.org/live.
Hey, do you want to listen to us as a podcast? Maybe will you take a nice bike ride through the countryside? Just search for This Week in Science wherever podcasts are found. If you enjoyed the show, get your friends to subscribe as well.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes and links to stories will be available on our website, www.twist.org. And you can also hire Blair to be a babysitter.
You can also contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, or me, Blair, at blairbaz@twist.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, in the subject line, or your email will be spam filtered all the way into a cup that's upside down with a dog treat in it. It'll just be taped to the top of it. You'll never find it.
And while you're looking, you can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at Twist Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes due in the night, please let us know.
We'll be back here next week, and we hope you'll join us again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer and it shouldn't be news. That what I say may not represent your views. But I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just yet understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And this week in science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. Got a laundry list of items I want to address, from stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. So how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say, and if you've learned anything from the words that we said, then please just remember it's all in your head. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. This Week in 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 Science.